a battle-hardened Navy SEAL, lost and broken, trudging through the bitter snow, holding two tiny puppies in his arms. He's alone, his team gone, his comrades dead, and now the last reminder of his past. His canine's pups are dying in his hands. What will he do when he finds no help in sight? The wind howled through the barren trees, carrying the biting cold that cut through the SEAL's worn gear. His face was pale, not from the chill, but from the exhaustion and grief that weighed on him. He trudged through the snow, his breath visible in the night air. Each step was slower than the last, as if his body was begging for rest, but he couldn't stop. Not yet, not with the puppies in his arms. The only remaining link to the canine companion he'd lost in the war. Clutching the two tiny pups tightly wrapped in a blanket, he reached the edge of a small, weather-beaten farm. A flickering light glowed from the window of a modest barn. He approached cautiously, his boots crunching in the snow, each sound amplified in the silence of the night. The world seemed empty, save for the small life he carried in his arms, and the small glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would help him. He knocked on the barn door with a trembling hand, unsure of what to expect. The door creaked open slightly, revealing a woman holding a lantern. Her face was bathed in the soft light, but her expression was unreadable, eyes narrowing as she looked him over. "Can we sleep in the barn, ma'am?" he asked softly, his voice rough from the cold. "It's cold out here." The woman's gaze was cautious, her grip tightening around the lantern as she eyed the man in front of her. There was something about him, his posture, his eyes, that didn't sit right. He wasn't just a stranger. He was someone who had seen too much. She could tell, even from the little she could make out through the storm. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice firm but wary. Her eyes shifted to the puppies in his arms and then back to him. "What's your business here?" The SEAL's face was worn, his military fatigues caked in snow and dirt. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, but he kept his distance, sensing her hesitation. The puppy's soft whines were the only sound besides the howling wind. "I'm just looking for shelter for the night," he replied, his voice low. "Please, I've lost everything." "I'm not dangerous." She hesitated, her eyes searching his face, then glanced at the barn behind her. "I don't know you. I can't just let anyone in." The SEAL stood there for a moment, the weight of her stare pressing into him like the bitter cold. His body ached, his mind foggy with exhaustion and loss. He had been trained to handle enemy fire, to endure pain and hardship, but nothing could have prepared him for this, standing alone with nothing but the puppies. Asking for help from a stranger, his breath caught in his throat as he spoke, his voice breaking through the cold night air. "I was part of a SEAL team. We were ambushed. A mission gone wrong." He paused, the memories threatening to overwhelm him. He could still see the faces of his fallen brothers, their voices echoing in his mind. "I was the only one who made it out. My team. They're gone." He shifted, trying to steady his shaking hands as he held up the puppies. "Their mother, she was my canine. She died saving me. These pups are all I have left." His eyes softened and the pain of his loss was clear. "Please, I don't have anywhere else to go. I'm not asking for much, just a place to rest." For the first time, the woman's expression faltered, her eyes softening as she looked at the small, trembling creatures in his arms. The woman's expression wavered as she listened to his story, the weight of his words sinking in. For a moment she said nothing. The wind howled around them, the snow falling heavier now, and the silence stretched long between them. She glanced at the barn behind her, her mind racing. She lived alone, and there were dangers out here, she knew that better than anyone. Yet there was something in his eyes, something raw, that told her he wasn't lying. Finally, she sighed, letting the lantern swing from her hand. "You can stay for the night," she said, her voice softening. "But just for the night, understand?" The SEAL's eyes brightened, and he nodded without a word. His breath caught, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he felt a flicker of relief. He gently placed the puppies down in the corner of the barn, wrapping them in a blanket to shield them from the cold. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, just as the SEAL settled into the barn. The howling wind outside grew louder, a low, menacing growl that made the woman stiffen. She glanced nervously toward the open door, her heart racing. The seal's eyes narrowed, and for a split second everything felt wrong. He stood quickly, scanning the darkness beyond the barn, his senses on high alert. "What is it?" the woman asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Stay down," he whispered urgently, his hand going to the weapon at his side. "We're not alone." The woman's heart skipped a beat. She could hear the faint sound of crunching snow, distant but unmistakable footsteps, multiple footsteps. Someone was coming, and they weren't just passing by. The seal moved swiftly, grabbing the puppies and pulling them into a corner, covering them with his jacket. His military instincts kicked in. He'd fought in countless battles, but never had he felt this vulnerable. Never had he been so determined to protect something so small, so innocent. Suddenly the barn door creaked. A shadow passed by the frosted window, and the SEAL's pulse quickened. He motioned for the woman to stay silent. The unmistakable sound of rifles cocking echoed through the air. It was them, the enemy. They had found him? Get down? The seal barked. Just as the first burst of gunfire shattered the night, the woman's breath caught in her throat as she dropped to the floor, her heart hammering. The seal stood between her and the door, his posture tense, his eyes focused. The gunfire continued to rip through the night, each shot a sharp reminder of the danger closing in. The seal moved like a shadow, his every move calculated, instinctive. He kept his body low, staying between the woman and the door as the enemy forces surrounded the barn. The wind howled, drowning out the sound of his breathing as his mind focused only on survival. His and the puppies. The woman huddled in the corner, her eyes wide with fear, but she trusted him now. She didn't move, didn't make a sound, her hand gripping the blanket tightly over the puppies, her only concern their safety. The seal's heart raced, but he didn't falter. He knew what he had to do. A group of enemy soldiers burst into the barn, rifles raised. The seal's reflexes kicked in. He ducked low, his weapon trained on the first man to step through the door. A flash of movement, and he fired. The soldier dropped, but the others were quick to retaliate, firing blindly into the dim light. The seal moved with precision, ducking behind hay bales and crates, returning fire when he could. Each shot was a calculated risk. His heart pounded in his chest, but he couldn't stop. "Not now," the woman's voice broke through the chaos. "The puppies." Before she could finish, the seal dove toward the corner, grabbing the puppies and shielding them from the gunfire. He returned to the woman's side, urging her to stay low. "Stay with them," he commanded. His voice steady despite the chaos. The barn walls splintered around them, but the seal didn't flinch. He couldn't afford to dot as the last of the gunfire echoed through the barn. The seal knew they couldn't stay much longer. The enemy had retreated for now, but they wouldn't be gone for long. The barn, once a safe haven, now felt like a death trap. With the first light of dawn breaking through the cracks in the wooden walls, he made his decision. "We're leaving." "Now," he said, his voice low but urgent. The woman nodded, fear and trust mingling in her eyes. She clutched the puppies close, wrapping them in the blanket, and followed him as he moved swiftly toward the door. The seal scanned the area outside, the snow-covered fields stretching out in all directions. No sign of the enemy, yet he led her across the yard, staying low to the ground, his military training keeping them out of sight. The wind bit at their skin, but the seal didn't stop. He was focused only on getting them to safety, away from the barn, away from the threat that still loomed. The woman's breathing was shallow, but she kept pace, her eyes flicking nervously behind them. The seal turned, making sure no one was following. "Stay close," he ordered, his grip tightening on his weapon. They had to move fast. Every second counted, as they trudged through the snow. The seal's mind raced. The danger wasn't over, but with each step, he could feel the weight of the night lifting. He glanced at the woman beside him, still clutching the puppies in her arms. Her fear had faded, replaced by a quiet strength, something he hadn't seen in a long time. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, the first light of dawn was casting a soft glow over the landscape. The seal slowed, giving them both a moment to breathe. The snow around them sparkled in the early light, as if the world itself was waking up from a nightmare. "We're almost there," he said, his voice hoarse but reassuring. He'd done it. They had made it through the worst of it. The woman looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I never thought I'd see another sunrise," she whispered, a small smile tugging at her lips. The seal gave her a tight nod. They'd both been given another chance at life, at survival, and maybe even at hope. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs a little inspiration, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another incredible tale of bravery, survival, and unexpected bonds. Stay with us for more heartwarming and unforgettable stories.